First, my session start with some question. From that question, you can conclude that now easily you can conclude that when we use the word divides or divisible by, when we use the word is divided by. Okay. So just I define well order principle. There is nothing but every non-empty set of positive integer has an least integer. After that, I give the definition about divides. Okay. So many people wrote the divide symbol is nothing but a vertical symbol. So not divisible by, that is nothing but vertical symbol. Then right to left you have to put the cross line. Okay, not like that. After that, I give the theorem. So already we prove the theorems. Then I give the definition for division algorithm. So that is nothing but dividend is equal to divisor into quotient plus remainder. The range of the remainder is 0 less than or equal to or less than the divisor. Where dividend is any integer, but divisor is a positive integer, as well as q is unique, r is unique. So r varies from 0 less than or equal to or less than b. So after that, I give some few questions, raise the question, and then click it about division algorithm. Okay, I raise two questions out of these two expression. Which one is correct? So from this, we learned remainder cannot be 0. So suppose in any expression the remainder is negative, so definitely that expression is wrong. So remainder cannot be. We learned the remainder cannot be negative. So remainder is 0 or positive. So after that, I define two operators, a divide operator as well as modulo operators. A divide B means quotient when A divided by B. A mod B means remainder when A divided by B. Then I will give some examples. After that, I define odd and even integer. Odd integer means 2z where z is a set of all integers. Even integers is 2z where z is set of all integers. Odd integer means 2z plus 1 where z is set of all integer. Here I define 2q and 2q plus 1. Then we see a few problems. That is, I show that the sum of two even integer is even. Then product of two odd integers is odd. Then product of any two odd integer is odd. Then product of any two integer of the form 4n plus 1 is also the same form. Every odd integer is of the form 4n plus 1 or 4n plus 3. All these four problems, first you have to know three things. What is the given factor? What we have to find? What are the needed thing for that find one or proved one? Okay. Then I give the proof of the theorem. So in this theorem, the third part is very important because A divides B, and A divides C, which implies A divides the linear combination of A and B. This is the most important one. So the previous theorem only for 2 marks. Sometimes they ask 3 marks or 4 marks. Any one of the subdivision they will ask. The next one I will give the proof of division algorithm. So some students say that I didn't understood. Okay, so I plan to conduct one more section. That is, I didn't get the approval from the higher authorities. I speak out and then higher authority and then I reply you. Okay, so I allotted some extra time for clarification of the doubts. So in some time, obviously I think around 7 p.m. I will get the permission and I let you to inform you. Okay. So in the time, interested people only can join it and clear your doubt. Okay, here just I quickly recall. The proof is consist of two parts. One is existent proof, another one uniqueness proof. The existent proof, first I have to consider the set, then I have to prove the set is non-empty. Then by well order principle, the set has a least element. Then I can consider the least element is R. So R in the set S. So R has a form A minus Bn or A minus Bq. Then I have to prove that R less than 1 because 0 less than or equal to R less than B. I have to prove this inequality. But in that set, I took A minus, that is R is greater than or equal to 0. So the remaining is I have to prove R less than B. So in that case, I assume that by I will prove the proof by contradiction method. In that case, I assume R greater than or equal to B. Then I arrive at one contradiction. Then I conclude that R is less than B. So the contradiction number theory is nothing but already I told that R is a least element. But in the contradiction part, we found another number which is lesser than R, which is lies in S. So I will prove like that. So in that time we get the contradiction because I told that R is a least element. So by contradiction R is greater than or equal to B. The uniqueness part is the easiest one. I considered 2, that is A equal to BQ dash BQ plus R, then A equal to BQ dash plus R, then I can assume Q is convenience, you can assume Q greater than or equal to Q dash or Q dash greater than or equal to Q. Then make a statement. From that statement again I can conclude Q greater than Q dash. So finally I arrive at some contradiction. Then finally I say that Q equal to Q dash. From Q equal to Q dash I can say that R equal to R dash. So the theorem is proved. So this is up to this we seen in the last class. That is proof. The major part is uh, state and prove the division algorithm. There is a major 8-mark part in last class. The 2-mark problem is from odd and even integer. There is a 2-mark problem. Okay, as well as one more theorem. There is a 2-mark problem. Okay. Okay, now we are going to see today's session. Okay. Pigeonhole principle. Already you studied. Please anyone reply me what do you mean by pigeonhole principle? Okay, no need to explain me. At least any one of them just answer me. Sir, I forget the pigeonhole principle, sir. If you say anyone, please just reply me. Sir, I don't know the pigeonhole principle. I cannot remember the pigeonhole principle. Anyone reply me? Why I'm asking like this? So after give us hereafter just I am going to do one experiment. After that experiment, you won't forget the principle of pigeonhole. That is pigeonhole principle. Please anyone reply me. Sir, I forgot the principle. I think out of 161, definitely at least few numbers I forget the principle. Is it correct? Anyone reply me? Say yes or no. Okay. I cannot remember, sir. Okay. Good. Okay, now just I will do one experiment. Before showing the slide, I am asking one simple question. Okay. Suppose I have 5 cages and 6 pigeons. Suppose I have 5 cages and 6 pigeons. My question is how we allot the pigeons to cages. Anyone please reply. How do you allot? See, my ultimate aim is, so if you allot in any way pigeon to cages, finally I arrive at one general statement. That general statement is nothing but pigeonhole principle. If you arrange any way pigeons to cages, okay, then finally I conclude that one general statement out of that arrangement, that is nothing but pigeonhole principle. Okay, please anyone reply me. Just give 3 simple allocation. Please anyone reply me. Please anyone reply me. Please give 3 allocation. Only 3. 3 type of allocations.
Sir, totally there are 6 pigeons
and
5 cages. So each pigeon will move on to the each cage. So one pigeon will be remaining outside.
Okay, then how do you allot that pigeon?
It must share with any other cage, sir.
This is one allocation. Any other allocation?
Any other?
You can do any number of allocation. Finally, we arrive at a single statement.
Okay.
So you give one allocation. Okay, you assume that each and every cages is a capacity of all 6 pigeons. You assume that each and every cages, each and every cages has the space of for all 6 pigeons. You can assume that. Now tell me, Now give one more allocation for the pigeons.
Among 5 cages, it can choose any one.
You give one allocation, that is first cage has 2 pigeons, the remaining are 1 pigeon, so 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, so 6 allocation is closed. Okay, now you can give another allocation. So assume that each cages has a capacity of all the 6 pigeons. Now tell me the second allocation.
So in one cage we can allot all 6 pigeons.
Okay, this is second allocation. What about the third allocation? Third allocation.
So every cage gets 2 pigeons, so that in 3 cages we can fill all the 6.
Okay. Now that is first person say that first cage is 2 pigeon, remaining all other cages has 1 pigeon. That is allotment 1. The allotment 2, first cages contain all the 6 pigeon, remaining are 0. Okay. The third allocation is first 3 has 2 pigeons, then remaining 2 is empty. Okay. From these 3 allocation, can you say a single word that is satisfied for all the 3 allocations? Can you find a single line, general line, that that word is, or that sentence is allotted, that sentence is common for all the 3 allocations? So I give only, I am asking only, please give 3 allocation. If you give any number of allocation, suddenly I can say that only one word, one sentence, that sentence is allotted to, that sentence is common for any number of allocation. That is nothing but pigeonhole principle.
So I think at least a single pigeon should share with another one pigeon. That may be
that is a cage containing at least one more pigeon. Suppose I allotted 1 pigeon for 1 cage, at least a cage contain more than 1 pigeon. This is my general word. Is it correct? At least 1 cage containing 2 pigeons. This is general word. Can you agree that one?
Yes, sir.
If you give any allotment, finally I give a general statement. That statement is at least 1 cage has more than 1 pigeons. Okay, if you allot any number of allocation. So this is nothing but pigeonhole principle. Okay, that is a cage containing, at least a cage containing more than 1 pigeon. Okay, now we can see how we allot the pigeon to cages. That is my question. At least 2 pigeon occupy the same, minimum 2 pigeon occupy the same cage. Okay, now we see the statement of pigeonhole principle. So here you have to assume one thing: number of pigeon is greater than the number of pigeonholes or cages. Okay, so in pigeonhole principle, pigeon is number of pigeons greater than the number of pigeonholes. Okay, now we can see the statement. The pigeonhole principle: if m pigeon are assigned to n pigeonholes, where m is greater than n. That means m is greater than n means the number of pigeons greater than the number of pigeonholes. Then at least 2 pigeon must occupy the same pigeonhole. In other words, at least 1 cage containing 2 pigeons. Okay. If you take any number of pigeonholes, but the first condition is the number of pigeons greater than the number of pigeonhole, then my conclusion is at least any one of the pigeonhole has more than 1 pigeon or at least 2 pigeon. Okay. Okay, did you understand? Now I can give one more example. So this example oftenly we use only boys or work gents who are going to work. Okay, there is an office or something. Okay, this example is more suitable for me, because my next example, okay, we will see the proof later. This example most suitable for me are office going gents, because see the example. A box contains socks of 5 colors. Okay, a box contains socks of 5 colors. Suppose I take out the socks without looking at them. How many socks must I take out to be sure that they will include a matching pair? That is, suppose I in the early mornings I wake up at 8. Suppose I have bus at 8:30, so I rush up to catch the bus. In the time, I can't see the socks, so randomly I can pick it. I can and then I wear it, and then I can catch the bus. So in that time I cannot see the socks, the color of socks. So in that time, I have to pick. I have to pick minimum number of socks such a way that in that collection I should get at least one pair of same color. This is my question. Did you understand my question? So once I read it, a box contains socks of 5 color. That is, here I have the infinite number of socks in that box. Okay, or countably, I suppose I can consider 100 number of socks in that box, but there are 5 color: red, blue, green, yellow, white. Suppose I need a pair of socks with same color. Okay, so such a way that I have to pick the socks. Okay, so how many minimum number of socks you have to pick it? So suddenly you can get, pick the 50 socks and put it from that. I can take a same number, same color of socks. That is not possible. So the aim is I have to pick minimum number of socks such a way that I get the pair of socks with same color. Can you answer me? Anyone? That is a possible? Okay. Hello. There is a possible. Okay. How do you connect this example to our pigeonhole principle? Any guesses? Someone, please, students, mute the mic. Mute your mic.
Sorry, sir.
Okay. How do you connect this example to our pigeonhole principle? What do you mean by pigeonhole principle? Pigeonhole principle means first you have to assume which is your pigeon, which is your pigeonhole. Okay. Here, what are the two main factors? Please, anyone reply me. What are the two main factors in this example? Hello. Please, anyone reply me. What are the, see, in pigeonhole principle there are two main factors. There is one is pigeon, another one is pigeonhole. In this problem, what are the two main factors? Please, reply me, anyone. Please, anyone reply. Okay, I will. No one respond me. Okay, I will explain. So here there are two main factors. One is socks. The second one is color of socks. Okay, there are two main factors. Okay, here in pigeonhole principle, the one of the main thing is the number of pigeons should be greater than the number of pigeonholes. Okay, here you can easily assume which is your which one is infinite number of that is which one is bigger is compared to number of socks or number of colors. Here the number of colors is fixed, but number of socks is greater than the number of colors, because I have suppose 100 number of socks, but I have only 5 colors. So socks number is 100, color number is 5. So the definitely the number of socks greater than the number of color. Okay, how do you conclude that, sir? How do I know that? How for this problem I have to I have to think about pigeonhole principle. How do I conclude that I have to apply the pigeonhole principle for this problem? Very simple. What is the pigeonhole principle? A cage containing at least 2 pigeons. Here you need at least pair of socks with same color. Pair of socks with same color. So because I have lot of socks with 5 colors, but I have to get a pair of socks with same color. That means connect with the pigeonhole principle. So in pigeonhole principle, a cage containing at least 2 pigeons. Here you need pair of socks with same color. So a pair of socks is 2. At least I need 2 socks with the same color. So here easily you can apply the pigeonhole principle. Okay. Now answer. Here the number of pigeon is socks, which is infinite. Assume that infinite. Or you can take 100, count 100 or 50 or at least 20 socks. Okay. The number of holes here considers colors. So 5 color: red, blue, green, yellow, white. Here you need a pair of socks with same color such a way that you have to pick minimum number of socks. Okay, that is my idea. That is, you need at least 2 pigeons in a hole such a way that you have to pick the number of pigeons. Here in this problem, I have to choose the minimum number of pigeons. Okay, so since we have 5 colors, so we have 5 color, that is the number of pigeonhole is here 5. So that means you have to choose 6 pigeons, then only at least a cage containing 2 pigeons. So here I have to pick 6 pigeons. That is, in this problem, pigeon means socks. So if you pick 6 number of socks, definitely from the 6 number of socks I can get 1 pair of socks with same color. So how it is possible? Simply you can think it. I have 5 color socks with infinite number of count. First, if I choose the socks, first color. The second socks is second color. Third socks is third color. Suppose any one color will repeat it, the problem is over. Suppose the fourth socks is different, fifth is different. Definitely sixth one is a repetition of any one of the previous color because we have only 5 colors. So here I have to pick 6 socks, then definitely I will get a pair of socks with same color. That's all. I will give one more example. Did you understand? Do you have any doubt? Okay. I will give one more problem. This is another interesting problem. Okay. How many students do you need in a school to guarantee that there are at least two students who have the same first 2 initial? Assume that a school has students, each and every student has 2 initial. Okay. But my condition is at least 2 students has the same first 2 initial. At least 2 students who have the same first 2 initial. Okay. So in this problem, see, wherever you use at least 2 or more than 1 pigeons or more than 1 student, at least 2. In that case, directly you can think about pigeonhole principle. Okay. So here there are 2 major factors. One is number of student, another one is first 2 initial. Okay. Here, which one is greater than the other one? Which one is greater than, whether the student is bigger or first 2 initial is bigger, number of 2 initial? Please anyone reply me. At least Sanjay, Vignesh. In this problem, which one is greater, the number of students or number of first 2 initials? If you collect the, suppose in a school, guaranteed that there are at least 2 students who have the same first 2 initial. See, definitely, see, first 2 initial means that we have only, okay, I will explain later. So, in this problem, first we have to fix the number of holes. In previous case, we have hole is nothing but number of colors. The color is fixed. In the given problem also, the color is fixed by 5. But here there is no count is given. That is, the number of students count is didn't given. The number of 2 initial didn't given. But even though from any one of the factor we can able to find the count. So we cannot find the count of the student because it depends upon the situation. But we can able to find the 2 initial because in alphabet we have only 26 words. Okay, so easily we can identify the number of 2 initials. Okay, so in this problem, first we fix the number of holes and then find the number of pigeon. First you have to fix it because the number of pigeon is greater than the number of holes. So in each and every problem you have to fix the number of holes. Then only we can able to find the number of pigeons. So the number of holes I have to fix first. The number of possible of 2 English alphabet, because we have 26 alphabet. So what are the possible of 2 English alphabet? That is 26 into 26. So therefore 676 possible of 2 alphabet. That is AA, AB, AC and so on, like that. Okay. So in other words, we can in permutation combination. Suppose I have n object. From the n object, I have to choose only 2 two object with repetition. In that case, the formula is n power r. So here the number of object is 26. From that object, I have to choose two object. The formula is n power, that is n power r. Here n is 26, r is 2. I have to choose two alphabet from 26 alphabet. So formula is 2 n power r. Here 26 power 2. 26 power 2 is nothing but 26 into 22. So 26 into 26. So which is equal to 676. Here the number of holes is fixed. Easily you can say that number of pigeons. The number of pigeons greater than the number of holes. So I must choose minimum number of pigeons, that is nothing but minimum number of students. The count is 677 because I have 676 holes. A hole contain at least more than one pigeon. So in that case, I have to choose 677 students. If I choose 677 students, definitely at least a pair of students containing the same two initial. Okay. This is logical way you have to choose. The earliest problem also randomly you can choose it, but in this problem by applying the pigeonhole principle with the permutation rule, then only you can able to solve it. Okay. Please unmute the student. Please unmute your mic. Okay. Now we are going to see the proof of the theorem. Okay, that is student. Please unmute your mic. Sorry, please mute your mic. Sorry, please mute your mic. Disturb. My students, please mute your mic. Okay, now we can see the proof. So what's the pigeonhole principle? If m pigeons are assigned to n pigeonholes, where m is greater than n, then at least two pigeons. Please wait. Who is disturbing the class? Hey, Rogi. Rogi is disturbing the class. Rogi, unmute your mic. Rogi, mute your mic. Okay. Now we can continue. Okay, here we have to prove that is if m pigeons are assigned to n pigeonholes where m is greater than n, then at least two pigeons must occupy the same pigeonhole. Okay, how do you prove this statement? By contradiction, we can easily we can easily prove the statement. That is, suppose the given conclusion is false. That is, no two pigeons occupy the same pigeonhole. So the result is a pigeonhole has more than one pigeon or at least two pigeons. So the opposite statement is that is no two pigeons occupy the same pigeonhole. That means each and every pigeon must occupy a distinct pigeonhole. Each and every pigeon must occupy the distinct pigeonhole. Then we can conclude that the number of pigeonholes is equal to number of pigeon or greater than the number of pigeon. The pigeonholes are is equal to number of pigeons or greater than the number of pigeon. So which is contradiction, because in our statement m is greater than n, but here I get n greater than or equal to m. So in the statement I have m is greater than n, but I arrive at n is greater than or equal to m. So which is a contradiction. Thus two or more pigeon must occupy the same pigeonhole. This is a simple proof. Sometimes they ask as a 2-mark problem. Okay. Now I move on to next one. So suppose if time permits, I will teach you this this problem. Otherwise, you can study yourself. I can prove this by using pigeonhole principle. So just I state the problem alone. Let b be an integer greater than or equal to 2. Suppose I collect b plus 1 integers are randomly selected. Prove that the difference of two of them is divisible by b. Suppose I choose a integer greater than or equal to 2. Suppose I can choose 5. Suppose b plus 1 integers are randomly selected. That means I have to select 6 integers randomly. If you choose any 6 integer, okay, the resultant is if you choose any 6 integers, pick two from that, find the difference. Definitely the difference is divisible by that 5. That is, the difference is divisible by 5. This is one of the famous problem. So this is also another 4 marks, some 2 mark or 4 mark. So it time permits, I will teach you. Otherwise, you can study yourself. Okay, because we see we cover 2 more topics. Okay, so just I left to you, study yourself. Okay, next, this is one of the important result for 2 mark problem. Okay, please listen carefully. This is an important 2 mark. 90% you can expect 1-2 mark from this topic. Theorem. Let a and b any positive integers. Number of positive integers less than or equal to a and divisible by b is nothing but is called floor function. Is called floor function a divided by b. So my ultimate aim is I have to find the number of integer which is less than or equal to a and divisible by b. The answer is the floor function of a by b, a divided by b. So I will explain. Suppose inside the floor function, suppose you have 109.26316 means the answer is 109. That is, whatever number you have here, you have to choose the integer which is less than or equal to this one. So you cannot choose 110. So suppose if you have 109.999 also, in that case I have to choose only 109, because the rule is you have to find the integer which is less than or equal to this value. So the answer is 109. Okay. Now the first problem, very simple, by using the previous result. Find the number of positive integers less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by 19. Exactly apply the previous result. The number of positive integer less than or equal to a and divisible by b is floor function of a by b. Okay. Now please anyone apply the calculation and tell me, find the number of positive integer less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by 19. When you compare the previous result, my A is 2076, my B is 19. My answer is floor function of 2076 divided by 19. The answer is floor function of 109.26316. The answer is 109. Okay, the number of positive integer less than or equal to a and divisible by b means the answer is floor function of a by b. Okay. Now I move to the second problem. Find the number of positive integer less than or equal to 3076 and not divisible by 24. How do you solve this? Please anyone reply me. Find the number. See, we have a result for the number of integers, number of positive integer. Please note the word number of positive integer is less than or equal to a and divisible by b means there is a formula floor function of a by b. But here I have to find the number of positive integer which is less than or equal to 3076 and not divisible by 24. How do you find this? In probability.
So first number system minus the number which can be divisible.
Exactly correct. Okay. See, in probability we have one important things, that is total probability is 1. Suppose you want to find the probability of success, directly find it. Otherwise, find the probability of failure, then subtract from 1. So probability of success is nothing but 1 minus probability of failure. Similarly, probability of failure is nothing but 1 minus probability of success. So here, so first I have to find the total number of integer which is less than or equal to 3076, and then find the number of integer which is less than or equal to 3076 and divisible by 24. Then subtract it, you will get the answer. That is, the number of positive integer which is less than or equal to 3076 and not divisible by 24, which is equal to total number of integer which is less than or equal to 3076 minus the number of positive integer less than or equal to 3076 and divisible by 24. So total number of integer less than or equal to 3076 is, so what is your count? The total number of integer which is less than or equal to 3076, what is your count? Simply 3076. Simply 3076. Okay, so the number of positive integers less than or equal to 3076 that are divisible by 24 is nothing but floor function of 3076 divided by 24. The final answer is 128. So total number of integers is 3076 minus 120. That is a total number of integers is 3076, and the number of positive integers less than or equal to 3076 that are divisible by 24 is 128. Therefore, the number of positive integers less than or equal to 3076 and not divisible by 24 is 3076 minus 128. The answer is 2948. Okay. This is homework problem. Just do it yourself. Find the number of positive integers less than or equal to 3076 and divisible by 19. That is one problem. The another problem not divisible by 17. Okay. Then next one. Find the number of positive integer. This another. Sometime they ask as a 4-mark problem. This already university question. This is as a 4-mark problem. Find the number of positive integer in the range 119, that is 1976 through 3776 that are not divisible by 17. I have to find the number of positive integer in the range 1976 through 3776 that are not divisible by 17. Simply we can say that the number of positive integer from 1976 to 3776 which are not divisible by 17, which is equal to the number of integers less than or equal to 376. Okay, first how do you identify this? The number of positive integer less than or equal to 3776 which are not divisible by 17 minus the number of positive integer less than or equal to 1975 which are not divisible by 17. First of all I need the range between 1976 to 3776. How do you get this range from the set of all positive integer? First I have to count from 1 to 3776, then subtracted by the count from 1 to 1975. Then only I get the range 1976 to 3776. Do you accept my my conclusion?
Instead, we can subtract both the numbers, right? So 3776 minus 1975. Oh, sorry, 1976.
No. See, listen. Here we know the rule for only from positive integer alone. Okay. So first I have to find the number of positive integer less than or equal to 3776 which are not divisible by 17. From that I can subtract the number of positive integer less than or equal to 1975 which are not divisible by 17. Finally we get the range of number from 1976 to 3776 which are not divisible by 17. Okay, first how do you get 1976 to 3776? How do you get the range from the number of positive integer? How do you get the range from 1976 to 3776 from the positive integer? Positive integer start from 1 to up to go on. Okay, so I get the range mean first I have to collect the number from 1 to 3776, then from that I have to subtract 1 to 1975, then only I get the range 1976 to 3776. Okay, the same concept. So number of positive integer less than or equal to 3776 which are not divisible by 17 minus the number of positive integer less than or equal to 1975 which are not divisible by 17. Already in previous problem we know that how do you evaluate this. Similarly the same thing for this one. So evaluate. So the number of positive integer less than or equal to 1975 which are not divisible by 17 is, this is nothing but total number of integers from 1 to 1975 minus the floor function of 1975 by 17. Okay, in previous problem we did the same thing. Similarly, we have to find the number of positive integers less than or equal to 3776 which are not divisible by 17 is, so total number of integer which is less than or equal to 3776, that is nothing but 3776 minus the floor function 3776 divided by 17. If you subtract these two values, that is, finally we subtract 1859 from 3554. Finally we get 1695. This is an important 4 mark. This is nothing but combination of previous problem. That is the second problem we have to do twice times. That's all. Okay. Doing any doubt in this problem? Can I move on to next problem? In previous problem, I have to find the number of integer less than or equal to some number and divisible by some number or not divisible by some number. But here in this problem, I need a range. How do you find the range? By using less than or equal to symbol. That's all. We have a formula for one less than or equal to the start from 1 and less than or equal to some number, then divisible by some number. We have a formula, but I have to apply the formula for the range. First of all, you have to how do you get the range? You think about how do you get this range, then only we can apply the we learned formula, that is theorem, that is the number of positive integer less than or equal to a, which is divisible by b. Okay. Okay, this is a homework problem. Okay, so union, intersection, and please wait. Now I have to take the attendance. Please wait 2 minutes. Okay. Union, you know union, intersection, complement. Just I recall it. Let A and B be any two sets. The union means the set of elements belonging to A or B. The intersection means common elements in A and B. The complement of a set means the set of elements in the universal set that are not in A. So you know very well about union, intersection, complement. Okay. Next, the another one is principle of inclusion and exclusion. Already you studied in your DM also. You want to just recall it. So if you see this formula, you may think that the formula is too difficult. Okay, don't worry. We will see the particular case. From the particular case, we can do the problem. Particular case: A1 union A2. This is nothing but A union B. That is modulus of A plus modulus of B minus modulus of A intersection B. Okay, so otherwise I have A1 union A2, that is modulus of A1 modulus of A2 minus modulus of A1 intersection A2. Okay, this is extended to 3 sets. Suppose A1 union A2 union A3. First I have to find the modulus represent the cardinality of the set. Okay, so first suppose I have A1 union A2 union A3 means first you have to put the modulus for a single set, that is modulus of A1, modulus of A2, modulus of A3. For second one, that is the formula has alternative symbol. For single set plus, for double sets minus, for triple set plus, for 4 sets minus. Okay. So first I have to apply for single set, then modulus of A1, modulus of A2, modulus of A3. For single set, that is plus. Then I have the collection of 2 sets, that is A1, A2, A1, A2, A1, A3, A2, A3. Okay. Suppose, okay. Suppose I have 1, 2, 3. How do you collect 2 options from these 2 number from these 3? That is, the option is 1, 2. 1, 3, 2, 3. There are 3 options. Okay. So A1 intersection A2, minus A2 intersection A3, then A1 intersection A3. Then 3 set. We have only 3 set. So first 3 we have plus. The next 3 I have minus. Not next 3. The formula has 2 sets. Definitely they has minus symbol. Then 3 sets definitely has plus symbol. Okay. Suppose you have 4. Okay, what are the possible? Suppose I write 4. So 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, then 2, 3, 2, 4, then 3, 4. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possible. Okay. So first single set, so modulus of A1, modulus of A2, modulus of A3, modulus of A4. For single set all are plus, for double set all are minus. So there are 8 possible, 1, 2, 2, 3. So write in the way, here they write some order, but you have to write in this order, then only you can easily remember the formula. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 2, 4, 3, 4. Okay. Then for 3 set I have to put plus symbol. How do you collect 3 sets? So that is first I choose 1, 2, 3. I keep 1 is constant. Then 1, 3, 4. That's all. There is only 2 possible. Then 2, 3, 4. Okay. So how many possible? That is 1, 2, 3. Then 1, 2. See 1, 2, 3. 1, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4. Okay. The another option is 2, 3, 4. So finally I have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 4. Fixed. 1 is fixed. Okay. Then 1, 3, 4. The remaining is 2, 3, 4. Then 4 sets. So single set plus, double set minus, 3 set plus, 4 set minus. So here I have to put minus symbol for modulus of A1 intersection A2 intersection A3 intersection A4. Easily you can remember the formula. Okay. Okay. Before you have to, one thing you have to understand, wherever we use the word or, that is for union. Wherever we use the word and, that is for intersection. Okay. Or means union, and means intersection. Okay. We see the one problem. Find the number of positive integer less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by neither 4 nor 5. That is, I have to find the number of positive integer which is less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by neither 4 nor 5. That means the number of positive integer less than or equal to 2076, which is not divisible by 4 as well as not divisible by 5. So in alternate way we have to prove that. So see, whenever you see the problem, first you have to define the set A, B, C and so on. Here we have only 2 numbers, so that is divisible by 4, divisible by 5. So we have 2 sets A and B. What was set A? Set of all x belongs to the number natural number such that x is less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by 4. So why here they asking only not divisible, but I choose divisible by. In all cases you have to choose divisible by only. Okay. So first I choose the set of all collection of x. That collection belongs to a set of all natural numbers such that that collection is less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by 4. Then set B is denoted by the set of all collection. The collection belongs to the natural numbers such that that collection is that number is less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by 5. Okay, because I need the number of positive integer less than or equal to 2076, not divisible by 4 as well as not divisible by 5. So what is the inverse statement of this one? So that is, inverse statement of this one is the number of positive integer less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by at least 4 or 5. Okay, what's the given statement? Not divisible by 4, also not divisible by 5. The inverse statement is at least divisible by 4 or 5. Okay, so at least divisible by 4 or 5. R means I have to use union. So only I choose A and B like that. So just apply the formula for A and B. For any problem you have to apply union only, because I have the formula for only union. Okay, so what is the formula? A union B means modulus of A, modulus of B minus modulus of A intersection B. Modulus of A is nothing but the number of positive integer which is less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by 4. What is the formula? Floor function of 2076 by 4. What should be the number of positive integer less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by 5? What is the formula? The floor function of 2076 by 5. Number of positive integer which is less than or equal to 2076 is divisible by 4 as well as 5. So divisible by 4 as well as divisible by 5 means divisible by 20. 4 into 5 into 4, 20. So the answer is floor function of 2076 by 20. So find it and calculate it. This is nothing but this is for the number of positive integers less than or equal to 2076 and divisible by either 4 or 5. But we need the number of positive integer less than or equal to 2076 is not divisible by 4 and not divisible by 5. For that, thus among the first two 076 positive integers, there are 2076 minus 831 that is equal to 1245 integer which is not divisible by 4 or not divisible by 5. Okay, so that is total number of integers 2076. From that I have to subtract the number of integer which is divisible by either 4 or 5. If you subtract means the remaining number should be is not divisible by 4 as well as not divisible by 5. Okay, neither 4 nor means is not divisible by 4 as well as not divisible by 5. Okay, do you have any doubt? Can I move to next problem? Okay, similarly the number of positive integers less than or equal to 3000 and divisible by 3, 5 or 7. So you have to understand the word very clearly. So find the number of positive integers which is less than or equal to 3000 and divisible by. Tell me.
Jaykumar sir, it's time. I'm
Ma'am, tell me, ma'am.
speaking. It's time, sir, for the next class.
Ma'am,
Time is over for you, sir. It is almost
sorry, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. I think that up to 10:30.
I have to
Okay,
start the class.
okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Students, we will meet the next. Okay. Students, we will leave the class now. Okay, join the next class at 10:30. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So we see the problem in the next class. Now we can leave the class.
Subhashini? Subhashini? Krishna? Jayashree ma'am? Am I audible? Audible? Am I audible?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning. Who is this?
Ma'am, I'm
Kalyan,
Kalyan,
right?
ma'am, from EC department.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
So the people. Good morning.
Ma'am, I think for me, your voice is breaking, ma'am. Not sure whether the fault is on my side
Your
or
voice is
other side.
I think it will be because of delay
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Maybe.
in transmission.
So, what about students? Are they able to hear ma'am's voice clearly?
Yeah, 91 students have joined.
92, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So far, 92. Yes, ma'am. Some students
Two.
have replied, ma'am. They are able to hear you properly, clearly.
Okay,
No
fine.
issues, ma'am. Then.
Okay, then. So if you're not able to hear, please remind me, okay? Kalyan Kumar?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I can able to hear you, ma'am. Now it's clear. Now it's clear.
Okay. Okay. No. If there is a problem, just unmute it and give the intimation, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Okay, let's start the class. It's 9:30.
95 students. I think still some around 50 to 60 students are yet to join it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We'll start by 10:05, ma'am. 10:05. Most probably we'll wait for 2 or 3 minutes and then we'll start.
35. Oh, okay.
Okay. 18.
Kalyan Kumar, let us start.
Yes, ma'am, you can start, ma'am. Almost 131 students or 132 have joined, ma'am.
Yeah, 32 have joined. You take the attendance, okay, right?
Yeah, ma'am, yeah, ma'am. I'm going to start taking attendance, ma'am.
So good morning to all. Hope all are doing well. God's grace. I'm Dr. Joy Venivas. I do hope you remember me. I have joined as HOD of Computer Science and Engineering Department. And we feel happy to connect with you all in the Google Meet. I'm Dr. Joy Venivas, going to handle the microprocessor and microcontroller subject for third CCA, along with Professor Subhashini from ECE department and Professor Kalyan Kumar from ECE department will handling the other two classes. So the subject code is EC8691 and the subject is microprocessors and microcontrollers. So just an introduction. So to the computer, we are giving the high-level language. The high-level language is converted into assembly language. So the assembly language is converted into machine language. The machine language is nothing but zeros and ones, and this is fed to the computer for processing. The high-level language is converted into assembly language by the compiler, and the assembly language is converted into machine language by assembler. Compiler and assemblers are nothing but the softwares which is used for conversion. So why we are studying this subject? Let's see that. So machine language is nothing but zeros and ones. You have studied about the machine language in the PhD subject, zeros and ones, binary numbers, then flip-flops, etc. And the assembly language you have studied in computer architecture subject. In MIPS architecture, you have written the assembly language programming. In this subject, microprocessor, you are going to study about 8086 processor. So is it visible? So the main objective of this is to understand the architecture of 8086 and the design aspects, to interface this 8086 processor with the supporting chips, and to study the architecture of 8051 microcontroller, and to design a microcontroller based. Kalyan Kumar?
Ma'am?
Kalyan Kumar, is there any delay in my presentation? And
No, ma'am, no, ma'am. I can able to follow you.
Okay, what is the display in your screen now? Is it syllabus?
Objectives, ma'am. Up to, I think, 2 points we have highlighted, ma'am. Could you learn up to learn?
That I have completed.
Ma'am, the first point is visible, ma'am,
delay.
to understand the architecture of 8086 microprocessor.
Yeah.
Second point is visible.
Now I can see a PC, ma'am.
So
Image
there
of
is
a
some
PC.
delay. Just first, yeah.
There is a block diagram, ma'am, now.
Only PC.
But your voice is clear, ma'am. Your voice is without delay, ma'am.
Then let me go ahead with that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Because the PPT is coming delay, it seems. Okay, next is the syllabus. So the first unit we are studying 8086 microprocessor, and second unit system bus structure, and third unit IO interfacing, and the fourth unit about 8051 microcontroller, and the fifth unit is interfacing. So the slide is, so they have come to sixth slide, but in the presentation, yeah, microprocessor. So let's see the definition of microprocessor. Microprocessor is a programmable device that gets the input zeros and ones. It performs the arithmetic and logical calculations and stores the output. So the Intel Pentium 4 is a microprocessor. So in the next diagram, you can see the processor fixed in the motherboard, supported with more number of chips there. So this is another simple diagram of microprocessor. Here we have the ALU. ALU is nothing but arithmetic logic unit, which is used to perform mathematical operations. And we have a register array. Register array is a group of registers in computer architecture, in MIPS architecture, you have studied the register array. So we have in computer architecture, that is in MIPS, we have R0 to R7. So like this, in this 8086 processor, we have a group of registers to store the data. And we have the input device, output device, and the memory unit. So this is another diagram to represent the microprocessor. Here we have the microprocessor with ALU register control unit, and we have the input device, output device, and the memory. So system bus is used to carry the information through all these devices, input device, output device, and memory. From the input device, we can read the data so that it is unidirectional. From the output device, we are sending the data out, so the arrow is directed out. Memory is, the system bus is bidirectional because we had to read and write the data into memory. So this is the history of microprocessor. The first microprocessor was found in the year 1971. It is a 4-bit processor and the chip number is 4004. Here, all the data are calculated as 4-bit. Later in 1972, they found out the 8-bit processor, that is 8008. And in our subject, we are going to study about 8086 processor. It was found in the year 1978. It is a 16-bit processor. Later, they have found out 8286. It is a 16-bit processor. Then 8386, 32-bit processor, 486, 586, Intel Pentium Pro, Intel Pentium 2, and Intel Xeon processor. They are used as servers, and it was found in the year 1998. And Pentium 4 was found in the year 2000. It is a 32-bit processor. And we have Intel Core 2, an i3 processor, an i5, and i7 processor. So these are the applications of microprocessor. It is used in engineering field, medical field, and all the home appliances. So but this is the microprocessor-based system design we'll be seeing in the final unit. So the first unit consists of introduction of 8086. Then we have the architecture, addressing modes, instruction set, and goes down. So we 3 faculty will be conducting all these classes through Google Meet. So first let's study about 8086 processor. So 8086, as I said earlier, it is a 16-bit microprocessor designed by Intel in the year 1978. So system bus is used to carry the information between the input devices, output devices, memory, and the processor. System bus consists of data bus, address bus, control bus. So in this processor, the data bus is 16-bit, which is used to carry the data. Address bus is 20-bit, which is used to carry the address, and control bus is 1-bit. It can be either read or write. So how to find out the memory capacity of this processor is 2 power 20. 20 represents the size of the address bus. So this 8086 processor can address 1 megabyte of memory. So normally in the processing, we have 3 phases to execute an instruction: fetch, decode, and execute. So fetches, the instruction will be fetched, and decoding means it will identify what type of instruction it is, whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And the last phase is execute. By getting the input from the devices or from the memory, it will execute the instruction. That is, first instruction we have fetch, decode, execute. Second instruction. So this is a normal process. After completing the first instruction, the second instruction will be fetched. But in 8086 processor, we have the parallel processing. So the first instruction will be fetched. And when the first instruction is in the decode state, the second instruction will be fetched. And when you come to the last one, the first instruction is in the execute state, and instruction 2 in the decode state, and we have fetched the third instruction. So this is the parallel processing. This is the technique used in 8086 processor. This is used to increase the speed and performance of the processor. So there are 2 modes of operation: minimum mode and maximum mode. So minimum mode means it will be acting as uniprocessor. There will be only one processor. 8086 will be there. In maximum mode, it is multiprocessor. That is to 8086, we can add more processors. That is 8087. It is nothing but a numeric processor, coprocessor, which is used to perform mathematical operations. 8089 is an I/O processor, which is used to control all the I/O devices. Like this, suppose if you take 80186 means the coprocessor will be 80187 and the I/O processor will be 80189. So let's introduction here. This the bit. Bit, you know that it is nothing but a binary number 0 or 1. And nibble means 4-bit. Byte means 8-bit. And 16-bit is a word. And 32-bit is a double word. So data is nothing but a binary number or code operated by an instruction. An address is used to identify the memory location. And clock pulse is used to synchronize the various devices. You know what is clock pulse. That's to the flip-flop, will be giving the clock pulse. So when we give the clock pulse only, the data will be transferred out. So to activate all the devices, we need the clock pulse. The binary numbers, you know that it is 0 and 1. Just an introduction, just refreshing this. 0 and 1, the base is 2. And decimal numbers, and we have 0 to 9, it is decimal base is 10. And octal numbers is 0 to 7, the base is 8. And hexadecimal numbers, we have 0 to 9 and 8 to F. So all the hexadecimal numbers are represented by using 8421 code. And we are going to use this hexadecimal numbers in this. 8421, it is a weighted code. Suppose if you want to represent the number 8 means, so in that 8 position, we have to put 1. All the remaining bits will be 0. Okay, so like this for 10, it is 8 and 2 will get 10. So we are putting 1, 0, 1, 0. This is the block diagram of 8086 microprocessor. So it is divided into 2 units, bus interface unit and execution unit. 2 parts are there. So the main one is here we are having a 6-byte queue. So this, to increase the performance, we are using the parallel processing. So this 6-byte queue supports in that. And then we have the registers. Code segment register, stack segment register, data segment register, extra segment register, and instruction pointers. And then we have the physical address calculation is the main part in this 8086 processor. So that will be found out in that Sigma place. Okay. And below the execution unit, we have the general purpose registers, and we have the ALU, operands, and flags. So let's see in detail all these units. The code segment register, you can take the screenshot also. Code CS refers code segment register, SS is stack segment register, DS is data segment register, ES is extra segment register, IP is instruction pointer. Code segment register is used to store the codes, and stack segment is used for stack operation, and data segment and extra segment are used for data. An instruction pointer, we know it points to the instruction to be executed. Like this, we have stack pointer register, base pointer register, source index register, destination index register. Okay. Let's see the memory organization. What is the total memory capacity? Can you put in the chat box? Abhinaya S, can you please answer? What is the memory capacity? Abhinaya S. Abhinaya. Akash. Akash. Akash KS. Akash? Okay, let me continue with this. So the total memory capacity of the 8086 processor is 1 megabyte of memory. So all the 1 megabyte of memory is used for different processors. So here it is divided into 4 regions: code segment region, data segment region, which is used to store the data, extra segment region, which is used to store the data, and stack segment region is used for stack operation. So in the code segment region, the codes will be stored. So all the segments region are of 64K. And here, when you see this code segment, the address starts from 60,000 to 6FFF. So these, in this right side, we have code 64K. These are the regions. So the base address of all these regions will be available in their respective code segment register. So the base address of codes region will be available in code segment register. The base address of data segment region will be available in data segment register. And the base address of extra segment region will be available in extra segment register. And stack segment will be available in stack segment register. Okay. So this, all the register contains the base address of all the regions. And all the regions at the right side, we have, it is divided into 64K, in which we all store the programs. So this is another example for this. Okay. So CS, actually CS, DS, ES, SS, all are 16-bit register. So the memory is 20 bits. So we cannot store this 20-bit into this code segment registers since it is 16-bit, right? So the left part of this, for example, if the memory is 10,000, the left part 1000 will be stored in the code segment register, right? So like this, DS starts from 40,000. So 4,000 will be stored in the DS register. And ES starts with 50,000. So 5,000 is stored in ES. Like this, tax SS region starts from F000. So the leftmost part F000 is stored in the SS register. So now we have this CS as this value. It is a 16-bit register. Then the instruction pointer, we have some value. It is a 16-bit. By using this two data, we are going to calculate the physical address calculation, which is nothing but a 20-bit. So let's see how we are going to calculate this. So just we put the data here, 3488, it is just converted into binary, right? So 3 is 0011, 4 is 0100, 8 is 1000, and A is 1010. So how we are going to do is, again I'm putting this table, we are shifting this data towards left, right? Shifting that. So here in the right side, there will be a blank space. So in that, we are implying 0. Okay. So like this, we have to do 4 times left shift. 4 times left shift. So the 3 will be shifted to the leftmost, 4 to the next position, 8 to the next position, A. And the 4 last LSB will be 4 zeros. So we put a 0. So we get 348A0, which is marked in green color, right? So to this, we are adding the instruction pointer value, that is 4214. So we get 38AB4. So this is the physical address. What we are going to do is, we are shifting the code segment register towards left 4 times and adding the instruction pointer value to that, so that we get the physical address. So this physical address will be available in the program counter register. So what is program counter register is, it contains the address of the instruction to be executed next. So this is the example here. Let's see this, we have calculated below this, the physical address is calculated as 38AB4. And the instruction in that marked is red color is move AL, BL. So that instruction will be fetched for execution, right? So like this, we have this CS, SS, DS, and ES. So all the segment registers must be shifted towards left, and thus must be added with the respective registers only. So CS will be added with instruction pointer only. And SS, the stack segment content, must be shifted towards left, and it can be added with SP, BP, SI, and DI. And like this, data segment can be added with BP, base pointer register, source index register, destination index register. And extra segment must be shifted towards left 4 times, and it must be added with base pointer, source index, and destination index. So this, the black color, that is IP, SP, SIDI, it contains the offset value, right? So next, let's see about the flag register. So already you have studied this. So the U refers, it is undefined. So let's come from the right end. CF is the carry flag. So when two data are added, and if the addition goes extra than more than that bit, so the carry flag will be set. So parity flag is when the data is odd or even, it is used to represent that. An auxiliary carry is used for BCD operation. That is, if the number is greater than 9, we have to add 6 to that. When we add 6, this auxiliary carry flag will be set. So next one, we have the 0 flag. You know that when we add two data or subtract two data, when it is equal to 0, then this flag will be set. The sign flag is used to represent whether it is a negative number or positive number. And single step, TF, a single step trap flag, it is used for tracing. You know that, no? In C language, you'll be pressing F7 key for single step tracing to debug the errors. So instead of compiling all the program in C programming, if you press the F7 key, so line by line you can trace the error. So that at that time this flag will be set, and IF is the interrupt enable flag bit, and DF is the direction flag, which is used when if you transfer the data from one location to another, and OF is the overflow flag bit. So that's all about flag register. So just a overall introduction. So the architecture, it is divided into two parts: bus interface unit and execution unit. Okay. So we have a prefetch queue. It is of size 6 byte. It is used for parallel processing to increase the speed and performance. And we have the sigma part, which is used for physical address calculation. And we have the code segment register, which is used to store the base address of the code segment region. So the below execution part, we have the general purpose registers. So we have AH and AL. AH is 8-bit and AL is 8-bit. So these two can be combined together, and this is AX, which gives a 16-bit register. Then we have the BX register, CX register, DX register. So these are the general purpose registers as we use in architecture as R0 to R7. And we have the stack pointer, base pointer, source index, destination index. Okay. And then we have the ALU, then we have the operands and the flags. You got it? Students? So when I ask someone, please answer to me. Right? Arun Balaji? Arun Balaji? Arun Balaji? Kalyan Kumar sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am. Is it okay, ma'am? Fine, ma'am.
Okay. So next one is, let's go to the addressing modes of 8086 processor. So can anyone tell me how many addressing modes in MIPS architecture? So we have here in this 8086 microprocessor, we have immediate addressing mode, register addressing mode. Like this, we have 10 addressing modes. So let's see what is. So immediate addressing modes, here the operands in the addressing modes, we'll be telling about the operands, how the operands are there. Immediate addressing mode, the immediate data must be there. So if it is there, means it is called as immediate addressing mode. Okay. So here 03 is immediate data. So move CL, 03 means the data 03 is moved to CL register. CL is nothing but an 8-bit register. Okay. So suppose if we want to move 1000 to the register, means the 1000 is a 16-bit data. So we have to write as move CX, 1000H. H refers hexadecimal data. This is immediate addressing mode. Register addressing mode is if both the operands are registers, it is called as register addressing mode. So here move DX, CX. So DX and CX are 16-bit register. So it is register addressing mode. Next one is direct addressing mode. Direct addressing means here within the square bracket, bracket 4000 refers data in that address. Okay, so data in that address must be shifted to CL. So how to get this address, physical address, 20 bits? So we are having the offset value of 4000. So that must be converted into 20-bit physical address, right? So in the right side table, we have DSS 5000. So we are shifting that towards left by 4 bits. So it is 50,000. Next, we are adding the offset value 4000. So it is 54,000. Data in that 54,000 will be transferred to CL. Okay, so this is register direct addressing mode. So next one is register indirect addressing mode. So instead of putting that 4000, so I'm substituting here as DI, register value. So data in that register, right? It must be transferred to CS. The same example, if you take as DSS 5000, it must be shifted towards left four times. So we get 50,000. So add the offset value that is available in DI. So it is 54,000. Data from that will be transferred to CL register. Okay, CL and CH, because there are two 16-bit data transfer, because we are moving the data to CX register. So in the previous example, see that CL register. So CL is 8 bits. So only one data transfer will be there. So in this instruction, move CX comma DI. So CX is 16 bits. So two data transfer will be there. So the data from 54,000 and 54,001 will be transferred to CX register. So next one is string addressing mode. So here we have this move string byte instruction. Move string byte. So this is used to transfer data from one memory location to another memory location. Okay. So here DS can be taken as a source address and ES as the extra destination address. We are going to transfer the data. So shifting DS, we get 20,000. To that, the offset value 0500 is added. So we get 20,500. So this is the source address. Like this, we have to find out the destination address. That is 4,000 shifted towards left. So we get 40,000 plus 300. So 40,300. So data from 20,500 is transferred to 40,300. So direction flag is equal to 0 means address will be incremented. That is the first data 20,500 will be transferred to 40,300. There will be no problem. So second step is we have to take the second data, whether we have to increment the address, that is whether the data from 20,501 or the previous data must be taken. For this, the direction flag is used. So if it is equal to 0 means the address will be incremented and data in that memory location will be transferred to the destination address. Okay. So string addressing mode is the instructions that are used for string operation. We have several instructions. So one of that is move string byte. So next one is index addressing mode. So here, let's see the first instruction, move BH comma start SI. So start is nothing but offset value, which is defined as a variable. SI is a source index register. Data from that memory location, that is start plus SI must be added together, and this must be data from that memory location is transferred to BH. Okay, so like this, the second instruction we have 4,000 plus SI. This from this the data must be transferred to BH, and next is the offset is 8 bits. So 8 plus SI, from that the data must be transferred to BH. Okay, so let's see how we calculate the physical address. So here we are going to transfer the data. So we are shifting the DS data segment register towards left 4 times and adding the start value and the content of SI value. So we get a physical address. So data from that memory location will be transferred to BH. Okay. This index addressing, since we have all the registers for SI. So next one is base addressing mode. See here, in this base addressing mode, the square bracket inside this, we have BX. That's the difference. In the previous one, it is index addressing. It is we have SI, and here base addressing mode. Here we have BX. And next one is base index addressing mode. Here the offset will be available in SI and also BX. Hope you can find the difference, right? So base addressing mode, we have the register BX, and base index addressing mode SI BX. Okay. So next one is relative addressing mode is all the jump instruction, jump no carry, jump carry like this. And then have the implied addressing mode is the instruction without operands are called as implied addressing mode. CLC means clear the carriage, right? So these are the addressing modes of 8086 processor. So immediate addressing means the operand we have an immediate data. Register addressing modes, the operands will be registers. Directory addressing modes means we are taking the data from memory location. So in the instruction, the address will be referred. Register indirect addressing mode means that is the offset will be available in the register. String addressing mode means the registers that are used for string operation. The index addressing mode is the offset will be available in the index register. And base addressing mode means the offset will be available in the base register, that is BX register. And base index addressing mode is the address will be offset will be available in BX and SI. And relative addressing mode is all the jump instructions, condition loop instruction comes under this. And implied addressing mode is instructions without operands. Right? Hope you all understood this. Any questions, please?
Mom,
Ah,
mom, hello.
yeah,
Mom,
who's that?
I'm Karthik speaking, mom.
Yeah, perfect.
Mom, what do you mean by that CX, DX, and CL registers, mom?
Yeah, CX are nothing but the registers. So in you have studied computer architecture in the previous semester, right?
Yes, mom.
The registers there, what are the registers we use for programming? R0, R1, R2, R3 like that.
Yes, mom.
Okay. So here also we are using the registers. AH is 8-bit register. AL is another 8-bit register. Okay. So both combined together is AX register. If you go to the slide. Yeah. See that? Okay. So AH, can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
In the execution unit, we have AH 8-bit register, AL is another 8-bit. That is lower order and higher order, right? So these two can be combined together as AX register. It is a 16-bit register which is used for programming, right? Suppose if you want to add two data means we can write the program like this: add AX, BX. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So AX and BX will be added and the result will be stored in AX.
Okay, ma'am.
Right. It is 16-bit. Suppose if the data is 8-bit means just you can write AL, BL. Add AL, BL.
Okay, ma'am.
So AL is equal to AL plus BL. Okay.
Okay.
So like this we have 4 registers: AX, BX, CX and DX.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Any other clarification? Students, hope you understood this concept. Am I clear? Since I'm taking the first class in RIT, am I clear? I'm faster so that I can change any feedback. Students. Hello. Kalyan Kumar.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it
Ma'am,
okay?
some of the students have posted in the chat box, ma'am.
Okay, then I'll go through that. Okay. Clear, ma'am. No, ma'am. Small clear. Understood, ma'am. That's perfect. Okay. So you understood now. So when you come for the next class, go through this. So I have posted the materials in the Google Classroom. So I'll be posting this PPT also, right? So some questions. So don't. So I want physical answer. That is voice answers. You can put in chat box also. But when I call a student, you have to answer me. So I think that will be good. Right? Right, Abhishek? Hope you're here, Abhishek.
Abhishek, it's
Okay,
not there,
thank you.
ma'am, actually.
Abhishek, why you are not answering to me? Abhishek.
And Abhishek M is actually he has not joined the class, ma'am. Abhishek M from A section.
Okay. So who is the representative for A section? Shall I know that? A section representative?
Anshul is a section representative, ma'am. You just ask Anshul.
Anshul.
He's the one. Anshul.
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 Okay.
He will be there, I think so.
Okay,
He's there. Anshul is there.
Okay.
Ma'am, Anshul is there, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, Anshul.
Anshul, unmute and answer.
Are you sleeping?
Good morning, ma'am. Myself and Anshul is the representative of A section. Ma'am.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So you follow the students. If they are not able to answer, you please let me know that. Okay. Anshul.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So now this class is okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I like to know that because since this is the first class I'm handling. So whether it is, if you have any feedbacks, whether it is fast or something, you can just make a phone call and inform me, right?
Comfortable in answering in the text box, ma'am. That's why they are not replying.
Okay, fine. Because when we go for the presentation in the laptop, I can see the presentation only. So I'm having the mobile also. I'm not able to go through the chat box. Right?
Okay, ma'am. Okay,
so
thank you, ma'am.
Concentrating on this presentation, right? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, fine.
Ma'am, Rebecca, ma'am.
So, Kalyan Kumar, have you taken the utterance?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I have filled in both the Google Sheets as well as in Google Forms, ma'am.
Good format. Okay.
Only 5
I have completed with 5 minutes more. Huh?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, 5 more minutes left.
Kalyan, give some instruction based on that one. So handle the classes earlier, no? You just give some instruction. They have to go through the lab, but as we are in the lockdown,
lab, you can give some instructions about
regarding
lab.
everything.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Shall I give next class because some of the students have left the group, ma'am?
No, they suppose they should not leave actually. It's 11:15. Up to 11:15, they should be in the class.
They have to stay, yes, ma'am.
You just ask them.
Ma'am?
You just give some instruction. Let them come back actually.
So about the experiments, what are the experiments you have in your lab?
Ma'am, regarding students, regarding your microprocessor lab, so if you are thorough with the instruction set, Madam will be taking your instruction set maybe next class. So if you are thorough with those instruction sets, you can able to understand the programs very easily actually. Okay, because you have only simple arithmetic and some logical operations, some string-related manipulations and all. So if you are thorough with instruction set, you can able to understand the programs very much easily. And from examination point of view, there is a lot of chances that they may ask you programs. Actually, for your seniors, I think so. They have asked mostly programs. So when that is the case, you should be thorough with the instruction set, okay, and the logic that you are going to develop. So if you are thorough with both this, you can able to write the program. So whatever even ask, okay. So regarding lab, no need to worry about because both will go in parallel. So whatever you study in theory, the same thing will be doing in experiments in your lab class. So it will be helpful for you to understand. And then and regarding the subject, it's a quite a very good subject, and you should know more and more about these subjects actually. And then, but at the same time, it's not easy for you people to clear this subject. It's a true fact. Okay, well, you have to really study a lot of things. You have to go through the block diagrams. You have to remember all the stuff over here. So unless and until you pay attention and listen carefully, you can't able to remember the things actually. So then and there I'll be giving you some instructions or tips. Please make a note of it and do ask if you have any doubts. That will be helpful for you. So right now, ma'am has taught you addressing modes and instruction set. So whenever you have time, please go through it once again. So that you may have doubts. If you have doubts, you can clear it in the next session. It will be better for you to understand. So just go through the, if I think ma'am has posted you the notes also, just refer the notes once, or go through the notes once. It will be easy for you to understand. What else, ma'am?
Students, as Kalyan Kumar said, actually, it is not a tough subject because you are studying the last semester only. You studied computer architecture, right?
Yes,
so
ma'am.
it is same like that.
Yeah, computer architecture.
Same as computer architecture. It most so able to write a program in MIPS architecture. So it will be very easy for you to follow the subject because mostly we will be writing the programs only here in assembly language programming of 8086 processor. Almost the concept is same. The instruction syntax will differ. Okay, for example, in that MIPS architecture, we'll be writing add R0, R1. Instead of that, here we write add, the key mnemonics, and R1 and registers will differ. So we can write here AX or BX. So I want all the students to have a separate note to write this because in the next class, you'll be writing the programs. So when you write all the instructions clearly only, you'll be able to write the programs, right? So it is well and good. Please have a separate note for microprocessor. Okay. All the best, and we have to score 100% result for the subject, the university exam. And hope all the students will cooperate with us. And thank you. Next meet in the next class. Kalyan Kumar?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Kalyan Kumar.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Where's Subhashini, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Okay. How we find Subhashini? Is it okay? Class.
Okay, ma'am.
The students will be able to understand it.
Because they have already studied about what is called registers and all, ma'am. So why it is easy to understand.
Okay, sir. Okay. Okay, students. Thank you. And next meet in the next class day after tomorrow. Right.